Good morning, everyone. I want to share with you something that I've been struggling with, particularly over the last few days, and perhaps it will resonate with you as well. Everything going on in Israel is unbearable to watch. It's unbearable to see that the hostages are still in captivity for over 3 weeks. Children, older citizens in captivity. Who knows if they are alive? Certainly, they are not unharmed. And then there are thousands who have been wounded. And then there are over 1,400 who have been killed. I mean, the list is unbearable to think about. But what many of us have not necessarily been as tuned into, and what I think is less spoken about, probably because of the acute issues in Israel, but what I'd like to highlight a little bit more is the anti Semitism that is being witnessed and seen and felt throughout the entire world. And it's not just in Israel, and it's not just in the European countries, and it's not even just in select spots in America. It's really everywhere. And in particular, for those of us who are in Rochester, who are seeing it right here in our own backyard, the anti Semitism is terrifying. And probably the greatest proof that all of the attacks and everything that we are experiencing, the anti-Israel sentiment, the anti-Zionism, as it were, it's so clear that it's actually anti-Semitism because the two go hand in hand. You attack Israel and you also attack the Jews worldwide. But what I have personally been in search of is some deeper chizuk, some strengthening, something to kind of help me contextualize and understand how I can move forward. And I want to share with you a piece written by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs Zatzal, in which he talks about anti-Semitism. Please listen to this quote. What is anti-Semitism, he says? It is less a doctrine or set of beliefs than a series of contradictions. In the past, Jews were hated because they were rich and because they were poor, because they were capitalists and because they were communists, because they kept to themselves and because they infiltrated everywhere, because they held tenaciously to a superstitious faith and because they were rootless cosmopolitans who believed nothing. The best way, says Rabbi Sachs, to understand anti-Semitism is to see it as a virus. Viruses attack the human body, but the body itself has an immensely sophisticated defense, the human immune system. How then do viruses survive and flourish? By mutating. Anti-Semitism mutates, and in so doing, defeats the immune systems set up by cultures to protect themselves against hatred. And Rabbi Sachs's point is that it's always the same anti-Semitism every single passing year for millennia. It's just that the content behind the anti-Semitism, of how they portray it to the world, is what changes. And understanding and conceptualizing anti-Semitism as a virus is actually quite powerful for the world that we live in, for the world that I live in the post-pandemic world. You see, we saw COVID, we saw the coronavirus as this life-altering change in which we will always be able to determine our time and our lives based on pre- and post-pandemic. And the truth is that what the pandemic did for us is that it helped us understand so much more about viruses than so many of us who are not in the medical profession are now able to understand. And what we realize is that the virus is incredibly resilient, and that no matter what, it's never going to go anywhere. It's virtually impossible to knock out a virus in entirety because it is so resilient. And although it is not particularly inspiring to compare anti-Semitism to a virus, because that means that anti-Semitism is going to continue to live on, what it does for us is that it can give us some hope and some strength in that we take vaccines to immunize us from the virus, and there perhaps are comparable things that we can do to eliminate the anti-Semitism. One thing that we can do is that we can spread love. Another thing that we can do is continue to do good and positive for the world, for our communities, for our friends and our families and beyond, And the third thing that we can do is try to educate as much as possible. You see, these things will not eliminate anti Semitism. These things will not stop the protests. They will not stop the threats. They will not stop the terrible things that our people and that our nation is experiencing. But what they can do is help immunize ourselves and others to prevent the anti Semitism from spreading. It will not eliminate it. Again, it's sort of an inevitability that it will continue to restructure itself and rejuvenate itself with different beliefs and different strains and different perspectives. But what it can do for the present is that if you take these three things, both educating, inspiring, and loving others, then you can help fight out this pandemic that has existed for thousands of years. Remember the language we used to use from COVID? We flatten the curve and stop the spread. We can do these same things with anti-Semitism. Perhaps part of the hindsight of seeing the pandemic is that it gave us, this generation, an ability to frame anti-Semitism of this generation with this new language. We fought out and defeated COVID. It's not gone. But we really, as a society, have been able to overcome it. And we, too, as a Jewish nation, have the ability to overcome this generation of anti-Semitism, this generation's virus, just like we have in every single generation in the past. Hashem should give each and every one of us, whether we live in Israel or abroad or in Rochester, wherever we might be, to have the strength to fight against the anti-Semitism, to label it as a virus, and to continue to immunize ourselves and others to be immunized so that we can stomp out all of these terrors once and for all. Wish everyone a beautiful, resilient, and calming day.